most of us spend around 6 or 7 hours inside this blob every day. And this thing is, of course, the internet. And what I'm going to talk about has a lot to do with what I call the digital dimension. And it's more than the internet. It's all these different things that we have on us that are connected to us all the time, but they're not necessarily connected to the internet, but they're part of a new dimension of things. So of course, if we think about that we're connected 6 or 7 hours a day doing things that we probably even didn't know we could do just 15 years ago, that's probably going to change us a bit, right? That's about 40% of our time awake that we spend inside this digital dimension. And as we spend so much time in that dimension, also we move our spendings there. So more and more of the money we spend, or the money we make, we spend there. Which of course makes businesses want to go into that digital dimension as well, because that's what's growing. So just looking at our smartphones, they're now replacing over 100 appliances that we used to have. So that's also a changing thing, that we're going from something that was more industrial and more of a product logic to something that's more digital and a more service logic, which of course then changes business models and things like that. And going back to this thing, this digital dimension, it doesn't really have geography. It doesn't have borders in the same way that our physical world has. So that's also a big thing, and I'll come back more to why that's so important. You can build geography into it, but it's really hard, it's really expensive, so it might not be a thing that you wish. So I'm going to talk about digital transformation. I don't know how many of you have heard the term before? A couple maybe? It's becoming increasingly popular. So many are coming into digital transformation from the IT point of view, or from the communication point of view, or as we do from a design point of view, or from a management consultancy point of view. So it's a very holistic thing. It's how can you change an organization into something that's much more relevant from a more digital perspective in this digital dimension. So I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Hello Future in Sweden. We have offices in northern Sweden, Skellefteå, and also in Stockholm. And we work with both small and large organizations, helping them transform into these new kinds of entities. We're a mix of designers, of service designers, interaction designers, design researchers, graphic designers, but also software developers and business developers. So it's kind of that mix that's interesting. It's using design philosophies and design tools into making businesses more relevant, more fun, hopefully. And I'm also going to talk about, in the end, some of the tools that we use. So I'm not going to show you very much work that we do. I'm going to show you the tools that we use to do our work. So looking at what this digitalization is doing to companies, what it does for them. We did a study last year, a qualitative study together with the national body for growth and development, where we looked at a number of sectors, both small and big companies, and we found 5 different areas where they all experienced some type of change or problems or things they wanted to address. So the first thing was increased demands on speed and quality of communication. And in the report, the example we have there is from a car dealership. Usually their salespeople have been very good at talking to people one-on-one on the floor when you're coming there to test drive your car, you know, that kind of salespeople, which has been very effective. But the thing is that they were now selling 50% of their cars via email. So they had totally changed the way they recruited salespeople, because they know they needed people who were very quick in responding to emails and much better at writing than talking. So that's one of the things, how things are changing, that they need different people who can communicate in different ways. Also, there's a challenge in business intelligence in knowing, what's happening within your business. Usually you have these industry associations, and they're very good at, talking about what's going on inside our industry, and they are buying those and things are happening. But it's very hard when you're being challenged by a small software company from Finland or from the UK or from the Bay Area. That's usually not something that most companies today have on their radar, that they will be challenged by something, completely different. So that's one of the challenges today. And also in business models, as I talked about, this digital dimension is not really based on geography, but in the more physical and industrial economy, we've been very good at using geography as a way to protect our business. So it's been fairly easy to be the best at something locally. Like if you're a taxi company, you can be the best in Rovaniemi or maybe the best in Lapland. If you're super ambitious, you can be the best in Finland, but it's really hard to be a global taxi company. But with digital, that's exactly what's happening. These digital business models are usually global, so then you can all of a sudden be challenged by this software company from San Francisco that's called Uber. So it's kind of hard to you can't bring the same thinking from the physical world into that digital world when it comes to business models. And of course, IT support systems, that's usually what people talk about when they talk about digital transformation. They usually start with IT, but it's just one small part of it. But what many companies are experiencing is that their systems and the people they have working on these systems are usually used to just operations, keep stuff running every day and don't change anything. But what's happening now is that we need development, so we need more developers, and that's a very different thing from doing operations. And then we get into the difficulties in recruiting the right competences. If you want to recruit software engineers today, that's not easy, because they want to work at Spotify, at Rovio, at these kinds of companies. So if you're a small manufacturing company in northern Sweden, it will be hard to find good software developers to work in your company. So that's a challenge as well. So when we work with these companies, we use design tools like this. We visualize intangible things to try to make them tangible so they can start to see their business in new ways. So this is something we call the transformation landscape, where you can see that there are 8 different things to work at within organizational ability, time to market, products and services, and brand experiences. So we can start to help figure out what's the problem. If they have a problem that we have the ideas, but it took us 3 years to get our product out, and by then we had 25 competitors. Then we can see, okay, maybe you need to do something about time to market. So maybe have a process for innovation, have flexible IT systems so you can ship code every 2 weeks, use a lot of startup methods to be to be much quicker. So this is the tool we use for that. And when working with management, that needs to be at the core of this to set new policies, so this is all possible. We do a lot of design thinking workshops with them, so they can, to help them kind of imagine what their business could be like. So it's, from what you've heard today, it's pretty similar to what you do in the physical world, but we kind of move it into more inside of our heads. And as I said, time to market, if you want to do things quicker, look at what startups are doing. So you use a lot of those startup methods, minimum viable products and so on. Very good for that. And of course, we do a lot of interaction and service design when it comes to new services and new products within a digital context. And experience design, if it has more to do with the brand experience, how you experience something across many touch points. And also organizational design is very, very key, because transformation is change. So, and when you change, people will need to change. So change can only happen when certain conditions are met, and that's really important. I think that's why we now talk so much about digital transformation instead of just IT, or instead of just management consultants or communication, because really none of those things on its own can drive change. You kind of need a more holistic view. So we're using this model very often, and it's very effective because it's so simple. It's based on Tim Noster's change model, and you can Google it and use it for yourselves. It's a very good thing in many parts of life. So it's basically about that you need 5 things to make change happen. You need a vision, you need to be motivated, you need to have the ability and the resources and some sort of plan. And if you have those, change can happen. If you lack the vision, people will be confused. Where are we going? What's going on here? If you lack the motivation, people will, feel hesitant and have resistance, because it will just feel too hard because I'm not motivated. If you don't have the ability, people will, feel anxiety, because it's like, can I really do this? It's like, oh, I get insecure, not a very good feeling. And if you lack the resources, people will be frustrated because you're ready to go, but we don't have the money or the people. It's like, come on. And if you lack the action plan, well, then it's very hard to know, where to start. So usually it's a combination of these things, of course. It's very seldom just one thing missing. But it's a very good thing if things aren't going smoothly to look at this. Okay, do we see that people are a bit confused about why we're doing this? Then work on the vision to create more motivation. So I'm going to show you 3 concepts that we use to make sure that we tick these boxes in the change model. So you're going to recognize some of this from the other speakers. So it's designed, but in another context. So we also use a lot of storytelling, because stories are very, very powerful, as we've heard today and seen today. So even from a business perspective, use stories. That's very, very effective. Because you might have a corporate vision. You all know those. It's like usually one line that pretty much says nothing. So if you instead can create some kind of story to show people, this is where we're going, we want to be this over here, it will be much easier to motivate people to be part of that change. So it can be in the form of presentations like this, it can be movies, it can be a letter to employees, it can be all types of things to tell that story. We also use something we call pyramids. A pyramid is a visual and visible initiative of some sort, and we always try to look for those. Have you done anything different in this direction that has worked so far? And usually organizations have. It's just that they can't really, connect it to a bigger picture. But if they haven't done something like this, what we usually do is we do some kind of vision prototype, because we know that if we get a problem from a group of management people, and we sit down with them for a day with a bunch of designers, we will at the end of the day come up with something. We can prototype something in a day or two. So then we can have something visual that looks like it works, and then you get this thing called suspension of disbelief, where people actually start believing because they can see it and they can click something and things happen. So that's a very good way to build these pyramids, to, if they don't exist, to do prototypes. The third thing is to work with stars, to find people within the organization that are getting this, that want to change, that see the vision very clearly, and to provide them with these stories, with these pyramids, and to make them the change agents, because it's very hard for us as a small design agency to go into organizations with thousands of people and change everyone in that organization. That's not possible. So we use these stars to kind of make the change happen within that organization, and we can check back with them regularly and help them do projects when they need to, but it's up to them to drive the change within the organization. So, fairly easy, right? Not hard at all. I'm sure you all get this. Just go home and do it. So just 3 quick things that I wanted that you can take away from this. That why people are talking about digital transformation is that businesses and organizations are basically following these new how people behave today, and where we increasingly spending our money. So it's kind of natural that this is happening. The second thing, what's the challenge? Well, you kind of need to become that model that I showed of an effective organization within digital is pretty much how a successful software company runs. So you kind of need to transform into an international software company, which might be very far from a local taxi company. So that's transformation. The third thing is how to do that change. Well, use these really simple tools of stories, pyramids, and stars. That's a good way of actually getting change to happen. And it's not that complicated. So it can be done. You don't need to be highly educated in something special to do it. It's more knowing the tools you can use. Thank you.